Hey, ladies, welcome to Freedom Friday. It is Black women making money in the building. Hope you all are doing well today. Please click the like button on your way in. If you're listening to the replay, put replay into the comment section. Or better yet, tell me if you think that Larry Elder destroyed the Breakfast Club, because I have been seeing on social media practically all week, Larry Elder destroys the Breakfast Club. Larry Elder, uh, you know, did whatever to the Breakfast Club. Mostly destroyed was the term that I saw. And I listened to a couple of videos and I'm like, maybe I was watching something different. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think the Breakfast Club destroyed Larry Elder either. I thought that both sides were talking past each other and not to each other with each other. So as you all are coming in, again, don't forget to hit the like button. I am going to drop the StreamYard link as well, so you all can come up and say your piece as we are, having these discussions. It is really ramping up into election season, ladies. It's really ramping up. The Republicans this week had their debate. Some people called it a snooze fest. Other people, are saying that things are, there were clear winners and losers and things like that. People are starting now to pay a little bit more attention to what's happening in politics. Donald Trump has his fourth indictment, and people may have seen the mugshot, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought that this topic was extremely important for us to talk about as upwardly mobile Black women. And the reason for that is because I think that there is an issue with crime in our Black communities, in our cities. I think that there is an issue with the lack of proper education, and not all of that is on the schools and the system's fault, but some of it is, right? And I think that there are a sizable amount of Black people who would vote for something different if they felt like the something different actually had something to offer. And as much as Larry Elder talked on the Breakfast Club, I don't think he was a good representation of that message. I just don't. So we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about it from our point of view as upwardly mobile Black women. Again, as you all are coming in, hit the like button. Don't forget also on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be creating your own personalized networking plan, because you all know affirmative action is getting cut everywhere. DEI is getting cut everywhere from what we're seeing from the court cases, et cetera. Venture capital for Black women, the first the first court case against a venture capital firm is actually a firm that is specifically for Black women. It's called the Fearless Fund. So, ladies, if you don't know people, you are going to have a hard time making it in this society. So, it's a free session on Sunday. The only way you can get invited is bwmakingmoney.com. You sign up for my email list. It's free. I'll send you the link. We're going to be on Zoom. We're going to have a good time. And I want to say thank you to Natasha for giving me my first super chat of the evening. Thank you so much, my dear. Selfish Love is in the building. Essence is Cool is in the building, and so is Sweet Lady. Very excited to have all of you here this evening. Okay, so before we start with this stream, I wanted to say that I listened to after Larry Elder did the Breakfast Club, he went on Jason Whitlock's show. Why I watched that, I don't know, but I did. I actually watched two of Jason Whitlock's podcasts. The first one was him talking by himself about one of the things that disturbed me about Jason Whitlock's program was the fact that he said that When Teslin started speaking to Larry Elder, Charlemagne and DJ Envy should have told her to shut up and sit down. I didn't like that. I don't like that. I think that we as Black women have just as much right to question anybody, including presidential candidates, as the men do. Now, do I like Teslin's delivery? No, I don't. But I would never, ever support any man telling a woman to sit down and shut up. Because the truth is, if Teslin had said the things that Jason Whitlock liked, he wouldn't have said that. He would have never said that. The second thing is I actually watched the interview that Jason Whitlock, did with Larry Elder. Turns out Larry Elder has been trying to get on the Breakfast Club for years. Been begging to get on the Breakfast Club for years. And for years, the Breakfast Club was off limits to Republicans. I happen to know some Republican lobbyists, Black Republicans who are trying to get the Republican Party to do more outreach to Black people. They have an incredibly difficult time getting Republicans to take Black people seriously. So the truth is, this was as much of a win for Larry Elder as, Charlemagne and DJ Envy getting Larry Elder to appear. This was like a mutually beneficial thing. And it is something that could have positively impacted the Black community, but it just ended up being, there was a real lack of policy discussion that I was sorry to see. So Baby Girl T is in the building. Down to Earth is in the building as well. Well, we're going to actually start this. I'm going to play a little bit of it. I'm also going to put the link in the chat because if anybody wants to come up, you are able to do so, and you are able to give us your thoughts and opinions with regards to this. So let's get started. Okay, so that's the first thing. That is the first thing. He's a MAGA guy. He's Team Trump. And yet he has to join the race because there are things he wants to talk about that otherwise would not be discussed, not even by Tim Scott. Let's be real. Selfish Love is asking, what is DEI? That stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Denise, your video is showing. So if you want to make sure you turn that off. And Denise is in the building. Oh, you all are saying you didn't hear anything, Dargit? Don't tell me you didn't hear anything. It was playing. I might not be able to because I didn't upload it to my YouTube like I usually do. This is like a new way that I was trying to set it up. Let me try it again. No audio. You all are saying you didn't hear anything. Okay, let me try it again here and see if I can get Let you share. Look for the share audio checkbox on the next window. Let's see here. It's sharing a window. No, I wanted you all to hear this, and I know that if all right, let's try it another way. I didn't want to do it this way, but I'm going to see if it's going to work a different way. Ladies, give me a second so we can go through this. All right, let's see here. Give me just a couple more seconds, ladies, and share screen. And let's see if I'm able to get it this way. So you all know the Breakfast Club is crazy when it comes to their stuff. So let's see if we're able to get this. I'm going to hit play and let me know if you can hear it.
Ass up in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Charlemagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have Teslin Figueroa with us, and we got a special guest in the building, 2024 Republican presidential candidate, Larry Elder. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
He does more.
Let me know if you all can hear it. You can hear now. Good. Okay. So let's start this. And as you all want to come up, the link is in the chat for you to come up, talk politics.
And that though, I mean, he was a radio host.
Radio host for 40 years.
Author, TV host.
Author,
host.
New York Times bestselling list. I got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Corner of Hollywood and Vine, Southeast corner, just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah, yeah, about a handful of radio guys do, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think it's you, Elvis Duran,
Angie
Howard
Martinez.
Stern,
Yeah.
Big Boy. Oh,
Angie
Angie Martinez.
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You said MAGA.
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America by far is the epidemic, not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of Black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty.
Okay, so let's stop here. If you all listen to Cynthia G at all, whether you like her or not, put a 1 in the chat. If you listen to Cynthia at all, because at this point, I wanted Cynthia in this conversation to say, have you read the Moynihan report? That's the first thing I thought when I heard this piece of it. Because, yeah, we have an epidemic in the Black community of fatherlessness in the homes. We have an epidemic of mom and dad not being married. Yes, absolutely. However, people like Larry Elder and a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives just throw out this blanket statement, if you just had a dad in the home, everything would be okay. And they don't really say it like that, but I don't ever hear anybody really pushing back on that. You know, just because a mom and dad are married doesn't mean that he is a good father, right? We've had these conversations. Does it mean that the child has a better chance? Yes, it does. However, I don't know about you all, you ladies, but I consistently hear this and I'm like, I wish somebody would actually like open up the discussion about that. Open up the discussion about what things were really like in the 60s, especially, again, since we have been studying the Moynihan report on YouTube and really kind of breaking that down, what life was like. In the 60s, most women were not able to get their own apartments, their own homes. My mother told me, even in the mid 70s, she went to get a car, and the car dealer told her that she had to come back with my dad to buy a car, even though she was buying the car with her own money. So we have a glamorized view of what was happening in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and the things that women were not able to do. And that's one of the things I would have loved to have seen some pushback on with Larry Elder. So Rana Love is saying depends. It depends on Cynthia and what she's saying. I get that. Level Up Single Mom is in the building. Day Colette is here as well. Yeah, so You See Me, I See You is here as well. So what do you all think? Do you all think that fatherlessness is the biggest social issue we have in America right now, in the Black community right now? Do you think that because this is a common thing, if you just had a father in the home, then the stats would be so much better? AE is in the building. What an interesting week. Yes, it is. You're saying it is the only issue? You See Me, I See You is saying no, definitely no. AE is saying it is the problem. It's weird that Black people glamorize the 50s and 60s. I agree with that from the point of view, especially of the family. I agree with that. It doesn't mean that there were not aspects of the 50s and 60s that were important, but during segregation, you couldn't just run off anywhere. So, how much of the togetherness of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s was based on the Jim Crow laws and the what was happening legally and economically in our community? In our community. So, this is the reason why when it comes to conservatives and Republicans, I separate the ones on YouTube from the ones that's out in the community really trying to help. I do think that there are laws that Republicans are putting in place that would help Black America, but when it's shrouded in Larry Elder saying, if you all didn't hear like the whole Breakfast Club interview, we're going to go through it, but him saying, well, there's no systemic racism, then everything else you say as a Republican all of a sudden gets put off to the back burner because we're like, well, we can't even agree on the basics. So how can I trust you with my policy? AE is saying, yes, a father in the home, the stats would be better. Is it just the father in the home, or are there, and this is something I've never heard people talk about. So if anybody wants to come and talk about it, absolutely click the button and come up. Is it just the father in the home, or is it the type of father in the home? If a young man today, let's say you've got a young man who is 25 and he has never had a father in the home, he's never had a grandfather in the home and his great grandfather in the home. Do we really believe that that 25-year-old young man has the tools to lead a household? We have to, again, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is just us talking as upwardly mobile Black women. I think we need to think a couple of levels deeper than this. There's no How to Be a Husband 101 in high school. There's no How to Be a Husband 101 in college. There's no financial literacy classes in these places either. The closest thing that most young men have to these things is Fresh and Fit. and O'Shea Du Jackson, etc. So that's the reason why I'm pushing back a little bit on this, AE, because I don't think it's just the father in the home. I think that all of these Republicans that are saying these things, they are, and I understand they have to talk in sound bites. That's where I would say I'm very interested a little bit more in the policy. If it's just a father in the home or you're off welfare, or things like that, I don't think they've really like thought this thing through, especially from Black women's point of view. Essence is saying Black culture is the biggest issue. Level Up Single Mom is saying the kind of man is important. No man is better than a problematic one. I agree. I agree. So, those are some of the things I was talking about with regards to this. Let's see here. You're saying here, and a man with character is definitely better than none. Yeah, I agree. So if we can have a man with character, yes, you're right. That's definitely better than no man in the house. It will help the mother and it'll help the children. And ultimately, a man with character is going to help the community as well. But there are several things that need to happen before we get there. So, a good father is needed in the home, not only a sperm donor who is there physically but doesn't parent. I agree with you. I agree with you. It is the reason why income stratification is not only high amongst Black people as a whole, but also within the Black woman community itself. So there is truth to that. However, in Chicago, for example, 50% of the young men are unemployed. You have people graduating from high school now who cannot read, you know? So I think that there's a lot to that conversation, AE. I think it's a lot to it. So, but I'm loving the conversation you ladies are having. Beulah saying Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think that was her name, discussed this with White House women during her term. Justice Ruth had to ask her father to co-sign for a house, and she paid the mortgage. Yeah, that was one of the big things. We here is saying he is here. Well, welcome. A is saying you need your biological father in the home where your children reside. I would agree with that if he is a good man. If he is a good man, I think just throwing a biological father in there and just saying daddy's in the home without, especially if he is sabotaging the household, I just would question that. That's it. So you all are saying a lot now. I'm going to kind of continue with this, continue with what Larry is saying here.
Since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. When I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young Black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young Black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young Black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young Black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by Black people, often against other Black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are Black victims, almost all killed by other Blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say Black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of Blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
Okay, so um, you all are saying a lot here. AE is saying here, I understand what you're saying. I grew up in a concerning household and I have recognized the type of man that he is. However, my life would be drastically negative if he was not there. So I grew up with my father as well. And yeah, my life would be drastically different if I did not have my father, if I didn't have my mother, if I didn't have the family that I had. Absolutely. But we also have to recognize, AE, that a lot of young Black girls, even with the biological father in the house, a lot, and I'm not saying most, I'm just saying a lot, they did not have a concerning household. They didn't have the stability that maybe you or I grew up with. So, one of the other things that Larry Elder doesn't talk about is, and I know, the YouTube femininity coaches are able to do this, and of course, I'm chuckling and laughing, is how do you select a good man? How do you select a good man to be the father of your children and a good husband for you? So he never goes again, he never talks about those things. Now, I think part of it is because I haven't heard him challenge. Now, I don't spend all day on YouTube, right? Or listen to podcasts. So maybe somebody has asked him. But how do you, as president, create policies that teaches young women how to actually select a good father for their children? These are some of the things that's very important for us to talk about. Um, you're saying here the biological father was there, but there was what? I don't understand what you mean. Um, Level Up Single Mom is saying that is the absolute craziest thing I've ever read. Oh, I must have been missing something here. She'd, we're here, or she'd, we here, sorry. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fine. Yeah, it gets to be kind of difficult having this conversation because then a lot of people have to tend to open up about their past, their upbringing, and all that. I mean, it gets sketchy. With the situation when you were talking about the men being in the house,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like my grandmother, I was raised by my grandmother because my parents passed when I was young, but I had that connection with my dad before he passed. He was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that connection with him. My grandmother ultimately divorced my granddad, but he still had a presence in our house. Then I had uncles. Even with that, without even a male in the house, I still had coaches I dealt with. So with with a kid not having his father or any kind of male role model within the family, mostly, the kids get into sports and you have these men coaching them and training them. And, that's where I got a lot of my, actions upon being a man through my coaches. And I'm still connected with those guys to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 40 now.
So was that because I want to respond to AE as well, who's saying the president is not here to bring policies to teach anything about how to choose a mate. It's not just how to choose a mate. That's not overall what I was talking about. I was talking about the fact that Larry Elder is saying he's running for president to bring up issues that are happening in our community. And the number one social issue is fatherlessness in the home. So, if he is running for president to talk about fatherlessness in the home, there must be some policy that he is going to bring about in order to reduce the numbers of fatherless children in the Black community and in America overall, AE. So, what I'm asking is, what are the policies? And we have this discussion in here that just having a man in the house is not enough. He has to be the correct man, right? So I don't necessarily expect him to, have a teach Black women how to choose a mate. But if we have over the past 60 years had a string of issues with choosing mates to the point where Black women are three times we have our divorce rate is three times as much as our marriage rate, we obviously have an issue. So my question to him as a presidential candidate is, outside of saying no abortion, right, which is a presidential policy, well, could be potentially, um, no welfare unless you're married, right? I don't understand what the policies he's going to bring in order to make sure that, the number one, that you have families coming together, and then number two, that those are going to be healthy households. Because I think in the 50s and 60s, even though the numbers of households we had were higher than they are today, it doesn't mean those households were healthy. That's all I'm trying to say with this. So, um, should we hear? Yeah. So I appreciate what you're saying about, because at the end of the day, what you're talking about is culture. You're talking about not only culture, but a community, I should say, and the community of people that were around you as well, that helped you, even though your father passed.
But that's even true going into that situation about picking so-called the right mate. A lot of women know who would be a good candidate, and a lot of women just think they have. That's the biggest issue, in my opinion, as a man, that a
Hmm.
lot of women think they have time. That's one of the biggest things because it's encouraged for women to, like the bad boy. How many women generally off the back, like back in the day, you had no choice, like far as force of, just being married. A lot of girls got married young to older men or men around their age. You
Sir,
know,
you are not suggesting that young women marry older men, are you?
no, no, no. I'm.
Oh, okay, because
That,
you
yeah, I know
treading
that's a
on
touch.
thin water over here.
That's that's a touchy subject, but I'm just saying, just in general. Back in the day, you would have like 17 and 19-year-olds or something like that get married. They like round those ages were young. Like nowadays, no,
Do you think a 17-year-old today should get married?
no, no.
Okay, thank goodness. Thank
I mean,
goodness.
I don't even think
So,
more. I don't think more or less 18 and 19-year-olds should be getting married because
well, I
most of the
hope
time
not.
they just getting out of school. I mean, it happens all the time. I had three
No,
friends that got married straight out of high school. Soon as they graduated, that next week, that Monday, went to the courthouse and got married.
so you had three Black women friends get married at 18?
Men, yep, I knew the men, but I didn't know the ladies. But I know
Oh,
the
you,
guys that got
oh,
married.
okay, all right. And you sound Southern as well.
Yeah, I'm from Atlanta.
Oh, and this was in Atlanta?
Yeah, in Atlanta.
Interesting. I thought that you were like uh, a rural good old boy.
and um,
Okay. Well, look. So let's then talk about the crime issue that Larry Elder is talking about, because he talked about that as well. What are your thoughts with regards to that?
as far as the issue with a lot of men doing crime, and he was talking about
Hmm.
earlier about them,
Black on black crime, and
basic.
that being linked to fatherlessness in the house as well.
A lot of black on black crime, it just it's all about money. You know, to a degree, a lot of guys don't have opportunities. You have jobs that were dedicated to the kids getting out of high school working at fast food. You have like 60-year-old grandmas working in fast food trying to provide because they didn't do right when they were young to keep, be financially stable. They have to work. So a lot of these situations where a lot of young kids were getting summer and spring jobs,
Hmm.
they couldn't get that no more. So now what are their options? If your parents don't have money, your parents are not getting you the latest shoes, what are your options? Go hang around the guys that sell drugs, ultimately start doing it, kicking in doors. I mean, the business route, a lot of people don't want to take that because it's much easier to make fast money by selling drugs or picking up a gun or hanging with guys. I mean, you literally have kids that are getting paid to just be a lookout, just to tell if somebody coming. A drug dealer might can get them $50 just to say if you see somebody awkward, the police or something, just yell. Who wouldn't take $50?
Yeah.
Like
So,
in that
do
situation.
you think that uh, our cities need to maybe vote in a Republican legislature and get tougher on crime?
I don't more or less looking at the party issue. I'm
Hmm.
looking at the candidate,
Okay.
Republican or Democrat, that can sit here and get the job done. I mean, because more or less the crisis is mainly around money. If you don't have money, you're gonna turn to crime. It's just not without a shadow of doubt. Even with the black on black crime, where a lot of guys are shooting each other, this ego thing is going on to where I have more money than you, or I carry myself a certain way. I feel like I'm better than you. That's when the egos get involved. So, like I said, it's mainly deriving from money to where a lot of guys, if they can't get certain things that they want in life or provide, crime is the best option. Because I
Hmm.
mean, if anything, what are you gonna do? Let your kids starve, or possibly you not have nowhere to stay?
So, um, I do believe that we have been soft on crime in our communities. I do believe that there are opportunities for young people outside of crime. And I can understand what you're saying, that a lot of, let's just say, young men, for this example, um, they're not being poured into. But at some point, I don't know if you've been seeing the various stealing that's been happening, but at some point, there's a lot of theft happening for like high end bags, like purses and things like that. Grocery stores are closing, et cetera, et cetera. If you think right now you have um, horrible economic opportunities in the community, wait until crime gets so rampant that no business wants to be there anymore. I think it's going to get worse. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I think that going back to the Larry Elder thing, these are the types of things like what policies are we putting in place? Is it going to be the National Guard in these cities coming in to put order in? Like, what is going to happen? Because the more crime you have, the less educated people are, the fewer economic opportunities you're going to have anyway. So then you end up with this cyclical thing. You end up with this cyclical issue. And Nicole is saying we're too soft on crime. So, any final thing before I like drop you down so we can finish listening to Larry Elder's interview?
More or less, even with family, just saying the least. Um, Women got to do better picking their man, and to a degree, far as the guys, same. It's on both ends. I
Mhm.
can't blame a woman for picking a baby mama who's reckless, but then goes at it the same way with the mother for picking a reckless guy. Because at times, a lot of people just having sex, and they're not even looking at the end result. You
Mhm.
know, not being protected. My biggest thing, like I told my wife, was I was more scared of getting a STD or catching the total package than to having a child. But the condoms were a thing to me. Like A lot of people don't like wearing them. I mean, just protecting yourself in general. Because, like I
Hmm.
said, you can have a baby and catch something that you can't get rid of at the same time. So, a lot of times, a lot of the men and women, I mean, like I said, as far as the time situation, not getting too old to where you want to settle down and do right. Like, I got married at 25. I knew I wanted to be married. I came from a family structure, and I mostly look for women with a family structure. And I told guys, I said, you know, a guy can have sex with a woman to a degree. If you look a certain way or carry yourself, you have sex with multiple women. But the point of reference, are those women, classy and worth the time? Because think about it. If you have a baby with that woman, it's not just 18 years. You're tied with
Hmm.
that
It's
woman
life.
for years, for
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
But
I
I'll
agree.
drop down and let you go
All
ahead and
right.
finish.
Well, thank you so much for coming up.
No problem.
So I see y'all are still in the chat going over this married at 18, 18 to 20 thing. I've already said my piece with regards to like, marrying super young because the stats actually don't bear out that those marriages do too well either. But I agree that everybody on this channel has the right to their opinion with regards to anything we're saying here. We are too soft on crime. I think that Black women need to recognize that, and we need to do something about it. Uh, let's continue listening with regards to Larry Elder.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Now it's about 25%.
So there was a time when Black women were not getting welfare, right? We know this. So there was also, again, thanks to Cynthia, the discussion that this was happened only for 4 years. So the government promoted a program, and now all of these years later, blah, blah, blah. The onus cannot be on the female. Men are supposed to run their own community. Well, look, I think this is just Cherie. I've said this before on this channel. The number one most important financial decision we will ever make as women is who the father of our children is. We can say that men are supposed to run the community, but we decide who gets a legacy. We decide who we birth. We decide, who gets in and who gets out. Let's just say that. So, True Mystique is in the building. Mocha Mommy is in the building. This is the most balanced Republican debate I hear. So many people keep talking about the plantation, but there are so many issues not covered or addressed by the GOP. I agree with that, Mocha Mommy. That was one of the things that I had discussed earlier, is that the GOP, and I know people on the inside that are trying to get the GOP to actually talk to Black America, they refuse to do it. But we do need to have not only Republican debate or Democrat debate, but just politically, what are the policies that are going to help our community overall? We can talk about the past because we need to talk about the past in order to learn about the present and the future where we want things to be. But what are the policies that people are running on that's really going to help the situation? So True Mystique is saying, are they still going on the welfare kick the father out of the home mess? I know that he did. He said it. He said it. Yeah. Elder cannot be president just on this nonsense alone. Well, look, he I don't think he wants to be. I don't think he believes he has a chance to be president, but maybe he's trying to be the head of HUD, like, what do you call it? Dr. Ben. Oh my gosh, I can see the guy and I can't think of his name. The one who was under Trump. maybe he thinks if he gets in the HUD, he can get us get us all together. So, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Uh,
Also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia. A young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean? What do white?
okay, this was the beginning of the end when Charlemagne asked Larry Elder, "What do white people do wrong?" This is like the beginning of, the pleasant discussion starting to move. So yes, Dr. Ben Carson, thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies. Gifted hands. Yes, exactly. Um, Selfish Love is saying, KSC said, can't nobody put you out of a house when your name is on the deed. I agree with that. I agree with that. Can't fix a degenerate culture. Well, the question is, they think that they can fix it with laws. And laws can be a carrot or a stick. So basically, they're trying to, I guess, give us the stick and say, we're going to take all of this stuff away from you. It's going to be interesting. My thing is, especially with TikTok and social media and things like that, if you take it away from Black people, and let's say Black women in particular, you're going to have to take it away from white women. We know that there are more white women on the system than Black women. Now, maybe Black women as a percentage, I think Black women are 25, have like 25% of us, something like that, are on welfare or food stamps. And I think 25% of white women as well. That sounds vaguely familiar to me. But if you're going to take away food stamps, welfare, Section 8, etc., you got to take it away from everybody. You can't just take it away from Black women, because we will find out about it on TikTok or Twitter or whatever. So that would be my only concern with regards to that.
A young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean? What do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there used to
racism?
be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Now, Charlemagne is going to say mass incarceration. And of course, people are saying that Larry Elder destroyed him because of the mass incarceration. I would say Black maternal health care is an evidence of systemic racism, right? But let's continue hearing what is said. And okay, so AE, stop bringing white people into this. I think Charlemagne is trying really to ask, you think that the Black community is so bad. Are there things that you see that the white community can do better? And really, the question should have been, are there things the government can do better versus white people? But that's my thought, AE, with regards to that question. Because it can't be that Black people are degenerate, scum of the earth, and white people. Now, I've heard conservatives on YouTube, the white people are pure as snow, and the Black people, you need to light a match to it and burn it to the ground. I've heard this. So this is an interesting question. Let's hear their discussion about it.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
At the top of mind, I'll probably maybe say mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of Black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family. There's
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a Black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married Black man to a Black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the Black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid.
Mhm.
Now, I do agree with him there. That we within the Black community have a horrible crime issue. It is true. And that we have put politicians in place and we have fought for, um, decriminalization of a lot of things. The pendulum swung in the 1990s when Black people were begging for the crime bill. Then mass incarceration happened, and then the pendulum swung back to we need to, not lock up so many people. I think that there's going to be an economic backlash, and I've been saying this. I think there's going to be an economic backlash to the soft on crime in our cities. I do. And at some point, this is going to have to stop. This is going to have to end. Somebody else here said, True Mystique, you had said something that I want to type. Oh, no, Nicole Jinks said here, I'd say housing discrimination. So when we talked about the different types of systemic racism out there, I said Black maternal health care, and Nicole is saying housing discrimination. Our homes in our community are more likely to be undervalued than white people in white neighborhoods. I would agree with that. There was an article that talked about a Black couple tried to get an appraisal. It came in low. They swapped out all the pictures. They put the white person, had the white person answer the door, and all of a sudden the appraisal was correct. So, I think now there's actually, the Department of Justice is actually looking into that. So Celine saying any policies that can make an impact on Black culture will make a change. Most chronic degeneracy comes from where people focus is on. If the people's focus is on trash, trash will be produced. I agree with that. My girl is here. Mocha Mommy, welcome.
Hello, Cherie. How are you?
I'm good. I miss you posting. Posting on your channel.
A lot's been going on. I'll have to post you an update. A lot's been going on. But
good.
I want to say that there's quite a few Black Republicans here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they all kind of have like the same they have non-Black spouses in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
But they have these talking points, and they talk about this. Oh, I said they have these talking points, but they never really address the real issues. And I feel as if you're the most objective person when it comes to Black people and Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Me or who?
Yeah, you are. You're the
thank you.
Most objective.
That means I'll never be rich from this because they will suppress me.
But I think there's like two big concerns that a lot of these platforms don't bring up when they're interviewing Republicans trying to talk to Black people. Because they always seem to bring up welfare, but they never really talk about during 1965, there was a disproportionate number of Black men who were drafted into the Vietnam War into segregated units. Those segregated units never got recognized and they never got their benefits. And that's one of the main drivers that drove a lot of urban women of female-headed households to welfare. And no one ever recognizes that. And Republicans are supposed to be in support of the military and veterans. And I always wonder why no one ever brings that issue up.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know it, Mocha Mommy. I think there was a lot happening in the 60s and 70s. Like you said, the Vietnam War. You know, I had an uncle who was there, and he doesn't really talk about it too much because whatever happened over there must have been pretty bad. But you know, that's why I keep saying that we have this romanticized vision of the 50s and 60s, and I don't think it was as cut and dry as a lot of these politicians are trying to say. Um, I do believe that, again, I'll say it for you ladies, I do believe there are Republican policies that can help the Black community tremendously. But I also think that there are things that we would need to change culturally in order to take advantage of those things. Um, but yeah, what else do you have to say about what Larry Elder is talking about?
I just think that there is a very concerted effort to talk to certain types of Black media and not others.
Interesting.
Like, I think like it's easy to kind of talk to Charlemagne and you know, DJ Envy, but they would never really talk to like the Ebony Williams or the Roland Martins who actually are like journalists, investigative journalists who could bring up like some of the really important issues and articulate those issues really well. So I think that there's like a very concerted effort to go after, I guess, more of like the emotional, I guess, Black voter and not the more analytical Black voter.
Well, my thing is, why are they not going after the upwardly mobile Black voter? I mean, you know, the people like us don't really listen to the Breakfast Club like that, right? Unless there's somebody that's just so interesting that I want to pop in and listen to, but that's probably 3 times a year. You would be able to, in my opinion, convert more upwardly mobile Black people, but there cannot be the pandering that Larry Elder is doing. Later on in the interview, he talks about the fact that, well, he's already talked about the fact that there's no systemic racism, yet when the woman Teslin says, but let's take out racism and just talk about the system, do you believe that the system exists? And he's like, no, the only time the system exists is when it's Donald Trump getting, what do you call it? His indictments.
Right.
Other than that, and so if you come into a Black audience, even of us, saying that, we're looking at you like, well, we can't believe anything else you're saying because we can't even agree on the basics right now. And we're not unreasonable people. I don't feel like I'm an unreasonable person. But you know, if there are certain truths, there are certain things that are so elementary and so basic that if we can't agree on that, then we're not going to trust you with anything else. And I think that that is where a lot of the Black Republicans lose us. The other thing I will say, I had it on my notes here, but I'm going to bring it up now since we're at the 58-minute mark and so many people are here, is that we also need to understand that racism is $1 billion industry. And we often hear about racism being $1 billion industry for the left, right? For Black Lives Matter, for Al Sharpton, for Tamika Mallory. But we need to understand that racism is $1 billion industry for the right as well, especially conservative commentators like Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, and Larry Elder. Let me tell you, ladies, it is not lost on me that neither side really wants this thing settled and taken care of. Because not only would the left lose jobs, opportunities, etc., but the right would as well. Nobody would be looking for Candace Owens except the fact that she is a pretty Black woman who can articulate herself and read a script in such a way that people are like, ooh, I like her. Because if she were blonde hair, blue eyes, nobody would be paying attention to her. Not really, not at the level she's at with 1 million plus subscribers. Not at all.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Megyn Kelly doesn't have nearly as many subscribers as she does. Mm-hmm. And Candace can parrot those anti-Black talking points because she's Black.
Mm-hmm.
And so can Larry Elder, and so can Jason Tatum. Mm-hmm. Like, and they can say, oh, racism doesn't exist. All the more reason that they know for a fact that they've also been subject to predatory lending. Like, that's actually happened. Like, Brandon Tatum has been subject to, like, Passover for promotions when he was a police officer because of his race. Like, these things have actually happened to these people. Like, but they can act like it doesn't exist, and they can act like they don't see the comment sections under their videos or under their social media that have those little, dog whistles. They pretend that doesn't exist, but they're very well aware of it.
I agree with that. I know that they're aware of it, but I also, and this is why I separate the YouTube social media conservative from like the people on the street, right? They know that if they go against, the talking points, that their tribe will turn against them, and they won't be able to make the kind of money. First of all, the Black conservatives make a great living. I mean, I could read the script of the Black conservatives and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions a year. I think Candace Owens is making millions a year. But then you can't speak your truth. You have to walk into an event with the White Lives Matter t-shirt on. And not that we don't think White Lives Matter, but that wasn't why she wore the shirt. You have to always be trying to one up and say, what's the most egregious thing that I can say today in order to, have my name trending in social media and talk badly about the Black community. And no, I don't think she owns her name. I don't think she owns her name as well. So I agree with you there.
But thank you for having me up, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of your thoughts on this, because I don't know. I just feel as if they always talk to a certain type of Black people who can't give them back what they're giving.
I agree with that. And I mean, I don't even have the bandwidth to do that, but you're right. I don't agree with Roland Martin just because Roland Martin doesn't let people speak. Like, I do need to hear the person's response. I think that Ebony is a better person, or Tavis Smiley, again, is a better person, or there are some other people as well that I think would do the sufficient amount of pushback but not overtalk the person, where you still can get a complete thought from the person. And I'd love to really hear Larry Elder go from, here's the problem is fatherlessness in the home, to here's the policy that I would put in place as president, or he's trying to be the head of HUD or whatever it is, right? To here's what we expect that policy to do in the Black community. This is the shift we expect to see in crime or in fatherless homes or whatever it is, to then, here's the final outcome. Oh, I'm sorry, Mokomami. You can come back up if you want to. I need that needle threaded for me, and I haven't seen anybody do it. Yeah, and you're saying Roland is a tad bit overrated. Yeah, you're saying he doesn't seem well read. I don't know enough, but I would think he's well read. I would think he's well read. I think that he's too much of a know-it-all. So you're saying Tavis would be perfect. I like Tavis Smiley with regards to his interview style. So especially those tough interviews. Let's keep listening.
When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone reelected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1990.
Okay. So there was a lot that he said in there. And yeah, I hate it when people say female as well. That does irk my nerves. So he said a lot in there. One of the big complaints that we have is that Barack Obama didn't do anything for Black America, right? So if that's our complaint, that Barack Obama didn't do anything for Black America, and yet you're able to name off the fact that he was elected twice, then when somebody says, hey, just because you have a Black person in this position doesn't mean that the overall community is being helped or positively affected, I don't understand the confusion that Larry Elder has with regards to this. But I want to be clear again. I don't think the Breakfast Club destroyed Larry Elder either. I'm saying that there's a lot of holes both ways, and we're not talking with each other. We're talking, or they were talking at each other instead of with each other. We got no closer to policy discussion. We got no closer to a true understanding because Larry Elder and the Breakfast Club, what you could say the streets, the people, couldn't even agree on the basic stuff, right? So if that's the case, we're saying mayors, right? You got a Black mayor. Well, let's talk about Chicago. You got a Black mayor of Chicago. Well, that's very interesting because one of the big things happening in Chicago right now is what? The illegal immigrants are being moved into the Black neighborhoods, are being given hundreds of thousands of dollars, are being put up on their feet, and the Black community is saying what? Our people are homeless on the street, and yet you're given to illegal immigrants. So in my opinion, what Larry Elder is saying about there's a Black mayor in New York, in Chicago, in LA. I haven't heard as much about LA, but definitely New York and Chicago. We keep hearing about the 2 mayors and what's happening with illegal immigrants and how they are negatively affecting the Black community, especially impoverished Blacks. We had that conversation here on this channel. So what he is saying, like to a person who is not thinking a couple levels down, what he's saying, Larry Elder is saying, it seems like he is quote unquote destroying the Breakfast Club, but he's really not. He's really not. How many of us as upwardly mobile Black women have said that the person who gave us the greatest opportunity in our careers were white men? We've talked about that on this channel. We've talked about the fact that a lot of the progress that we can make as Black women is by aligning with white men in having multicultural networks. So just because somebody is Black and they are in a position of mayor, senator, something like that, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything, ladies. Selfish Love is saying Obama had that first-time homebuyer program, which not enough Black people took advantage of. Look, there were things that there have been a lot of programs that Black people haven't taken advantage of. You're absolutely correct. I don't know about the first-time homebuyer program, but I'm going to trust you on that, Selfish Love, that there are programs that Black people don't take advantage of. But overall, if you were to give Black people a report card on Obama, can we name one major piece of legislation that people feel like Obama did that positively affected us? Because I can name one that Trump did. Is like it or not, he was able to do the what do you call it? The Criminal Reform Act, whatever that was. NACA, I don't think NACA was created under Obama. I'm fairly certain that was like an older program than Obama. So you're saying that Obama did NACA? Or he just funded it? The First Step Act. Thanks, Dana. Dana's in the house. Hey, Dana. If you want to come up, you can. So Obama funded NACA big time. He didn't create it. Okay. And we don't take advantage. I tell people all the time to take advantage of NACA. Absolutely do. Absolutely do. But let's keep listening, Larry.
Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the Black family, should certainly have some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged Black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they Black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of Black people were Democrats, as the majority of Black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or Black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or Black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the Black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. If you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right. And what I'm asking was, it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system or Black people in charge of that system that helped break down the Black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question. White or Black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct? Okay. Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people.
Not voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who puts them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or Black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is that the reason he did it is because of racism, then I disagree. He did it because of.
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question: was he white or Black, Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said.
All right. So we can't even agree on the fundamentals. We're going down a rabbit hole because I will say this: Larry Elder wasn't able to immediately come out and say the system was run by white people. All of a sudden became Black people's fault because Black people voted in the Democrats. First of all, Black people have never been more than 13% of the population. So there were white people that were voting in these things as well. White women had access to welfare before Black women did. Black women fought to get access to welfare in order to feed their children. So, I have a problem with some of the things. So we can't even get to policy because we're spending 5 minutes going back and forth about stuff that, in my opinion, is base level stuff. But we got a celebrity in the house herself, Miss
I
Dana.
know celebrity.
Yes. I wish I had some, like, what do you call it? The applause.
No, but you're right. It was the back and forth was irrelevant, and I did a space Wednesday, and I did my own recap, and I say that Larry Elder did eat them up because they didn't have a proper comeback. Now, forget Charlamagne, because I'm sorry, he is stupid, aka Lesser Charge is dumb. DJ Envy, he just knows real estate. Teslin is there for politics, right? Because Angela Yee, she didn't know nothing about politics.
Mm-hmm.
But Teslin, she does have a strong resume in politics, working on campaigns, so she knows what she's talking about. However, when it comes to radio, it's different. You see what I'm saying? That's not she's her specialty is not radio. She's been on television segments, so you have that short window to talk or have talking points. And my thing is, the problem is they're worried about the skin color. Move away from the skin color, because when you're talking about systemic racism, right? Because racism could be against whether it's Chinese or Indians, you know what I'm saying? Definitely Black people. But when he said that he doesn't believe systemic racism exists or not anymore, only thing you had to say is generational wealth, redlining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Criminal justice system, but that's too much of a deep rabbit hole. But just pick one. Redlining, and then you could correlate that with generational wealth. So systemic racism was very prevalent at a certain time, but the residue of it, because yes, we have far more rights, far more opportunities now. There's really no excuse for Black America now. I'm sorry. But we are at a disadvantage with generational wealth, and it is probably going to take us 100 years if we start now to even catch up, because of systemic racism, the systems of the banking system, redlining. He couldn't, if she would have just said redlining and stopped talking about what white people were in charge, he would not have a rebuttal. You can't argue that. And how is that affecting Black people today? It is. And that's why we're so far behind. So why are they still stuck on skin color? And also, let me say this. In 2023, I really don't want to hear systemic racism from Black people. I didn't like their talking points. They kept saying we're not Republicans or Democrats, but that's Democratic, what we see now in the White House talking points. And as of 2023, and from the last 30 years, Black people have had a voting bloc in Congress. We call it a Congressional Black Caucus. The Congressional Black Caucus has never pushed, submitted, or passed any specific policy for Black people. So yes, when we talk about systemic racism, we have our own people who are in part of the people who are in charge that are going against us, and we're putting them in there. So it does not have to do with race. And that's what they got choked up on.
So I think that you're right that there is modern day redlining.
Am I yelling because I'm on my computer?
No.
Okay.
I think you're fine. There's also, we talked about this on this channel, which is maternal Black deaths, where, Black women, irrespective of their socioeconomic status, are have a much higher chance of dying while giving birth, or having major complications. There are other things. And what I was saying, you just got here, what I was saying is, he first started talking about fatherlessness in the homes and how fatherlessness is seeping over into, all of the other issues that we're having. I was very interested in his policies with regards to, okay, thread the needle for me with regards to the policies that you would institute and how those policies would affect positive family formation, right? Because it's not enough for us to just have a dad in the house? Like, what type of dad is he? Is he going to be a positive influence in the house for the wife as well as the children, et cetera, et cetera? And I wish that we did not go down the rabbit hole of some of these things for 5-10 minutes talking about systemic racism and the system and things like that. But I do partially blame Larry Elder for that, because he wasn't able to say in the beginning, yeah, we have a system and it was run by white Democrats. Then we would have been able to move on to more substantive things. And that's the reason why I say that Larry Elder did not destroy the Breakfast Club. I don't think the Breakfast Club destroyed Larry Elder either. I've said that before. I think that it ended up being a useless conversation at the end of the day.
I agree with you. It was useless, but that's because of the questions they asked him were useless. So they just left it easy for him to just come back with a strong rebuttal. Well, Charlamagne saying to him, well, did you ever get a nigga wake up call? And come on, dude, you opened that door wide open, because he did. And I'm sorry, he destroyed them. You had Joe Biden come up here and say, you ain't black. That should have been your nigga wake up call.
But here's the thing. So this is the reason why I think that Larry Elder did not destroy them, because at first Charlamagne said, have you ever heard of a nigger wake up call? And Larry Elder said, no. Now, Dana, you and I both know that's a damn lie. He didn't have to lie like that.
Look at the generation that he comes from. He is the same generation as Judge Joe Brown. Judge Joe Brown's like 4 years older than him. That generation, they don't different mindset. That is the no nonsense. So
here's the thing: Larry Elder has been on the radio for how many years? He's been taking phone calls from people. He's been on the speaking circuit, and to tell me, I just don't believe him, Dana, that he has never heard of that before. If he had said, yeah, what about it?
Probably did. But he knew that was a stupid question. He's like, no, it's more like, no, I haven't. Because somebody said to me, do you know what per capita means? I said, no, I don't. You please explain it to me. Tell me. So it was more like, what do you call that?
It's being facetious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so again, you're right. He is seasoned. He's been radio. He's been interviewed. He knows how to debate. He knows how to do one-liners, or, you know what I'm saying? He knows how to be combative, but being combative with an idiot make it looks like, damn, he just destroyed you, because they were lightweights. And Teslin, I am disappointed in her, because she was the one that's not the lightweight. And why are you asking this man dumbass questions? And then he goes and say, well, what do white people do? Are you serious? Why do you care? And why do black people care what white people do? But that is an urban hip hop radio station that's not number one in none of the formats. And they're in New York. They're not number one. Number one is the Hispanics radio station and talk radio. So they're not even in the top 20. So you talk about urban gossip, celebrity, tea, and hip hop, and then you're starting to have these politicians come on there, and you bring Teslin on, right? The political analyst, and you still don't have proper questions. She should have gave Charlamagne questions to ask, because now that makes you look like you're not informed, but you're making millions of dollars. Who cares what white people do? You should have asked them, well, what are the solutions for Black America?
I agree with that. And what are the policies that he would put in place, and like walk us through how those policies would actually positively affect? We have several problems. We have a major crime issue. The education system is crap. You have schools where, kids can't even read and write, and they're graduating from high school. We have a lot of issues. I don't know how you feel about this, but I have my issues with the RAP Act. People Jay-Z and them wanting to pass the RAP Act. There's just a lot that can be dealt with, can be discussed. And again, I really would love to hear him speak with a Tavis Smiley or an Ebony K. Williams or something like that. Even I would love it in like a Joe Rogan style where we could really kind of get down into, since he's running for president, walk us through the policies, like step by step, so that
But
I don't think enough
I
people have
agree with
asked about
you.
that.
I agree with you on that because
Mhm.
he was not allowed to be part of the debate this past Wednesday, the
Mhm.
GOP debate.
Mhm.
And they tried to say, well, you use stats from Ramution or whatever, and that's not blah, blah, blah. So he's suing them. So, and rightfully so. But if he would have got up on that stage, and you talking about the GOP, the Republican Party, he would have been the only candidate up there that would have uttered the words Black men, Black families, Black Americans. And I
Mhm.
would have to give him credit for that. None of them did. Now, by the way, Vivek stole his talking point of single parent households, but he never said Black. None of them. So you take his talking points and you don't even place it saying, Black Americans or all Americans, but he would have been the only one. And that is a problem with the GOP. They don't want people to say Black. And he would have.
Yeah. I said this earlier in the broadcast, but I know people who are trying to work with the GOP to bring more Black people into the GOP, and they run into a lot of problems internally with the GOP not really wanting to do outreach. Let's just talk to upwardly mobile, middle class Black people. Like, there's just no interest in that. Larry Elder, I think he would have been an interesting addition to the discussion. But let's be real, and I will give this point to Tesla with this. That's the system as well. That's the Republican system. And you know who else had a problem with the Republican system? Michael Steele. Michael Steele was the head of the RNC, Black man. And what did they do? The same thing they did with Donna Brazile on the Democrat side. They put the Black face up there and stripped them of their power when they got into that role. So just because a Black person is a mayor, is president, is a senator, it doesn't mean anything. We need to, in my opinion, start looking at the policies that people are pushing, like really pushing, the ones they really care about, as much as DeSantis cares about a 6-week ban. And if a white man does it and it's going to help us, then that's who we go with. If it's a Chinese woman, that's who we go with. I just don't think I don't think it is wise of us to just say, oh, this is a Black politician, I'm going to vote for them.
Right.
That's not working.
Yeah, we definitely have to move away from that, because once upon a time in the 60s and before that, if a Black person were running, yeah, you supported them because their agendas, their mindset, and the Black people who were voting for you were heavily involved in the science of politics. We have more of a stronger community. Now, all those politicians, and and a lot of them are from the 60s, they're bought and sold. They don't give a damn about Black Americans, but we don't hold them accountable. Dr. Amos Wilson said it. He said, we are the forecasters. The politicians are just the presenters, but we don't act like the forecasters.
Yeah. AE is saying policies that encourage and provide stability to the 18 to 25 age bracket. I would agree with that. And infant mortality and Black women in healthcare. I would agree with that too.
Real quick, Sheree, how long you want to
Yes.
be up? I just got to walk away for 2 minutes.
Okay, no problem. Upwardly mobile by definition. I love that name.
Hello, Sheree.
Hey.
Hello, Sheree. This is a very interesting discussion. It's very important, but it's very, very interesting. I just like, where do you begin? It's there is a very, 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 very clear, I don't know if I'm going to call it response or solution, but no one is going to really do it.
Okay.
And it all really starts off with one thing. I do understand, we have a number of Black people, the Congressional Black Caucus, as Dana mentioned, a number of Black mayors. One thing about Obama is that Obama made it very clear the production of Black people. Obama made it very, very, very clear. However you think about him, it doesn't really matter because he did produce. He did perform. Obama performed. No matter what you agree, whatever he wanted to do, he did. He was able to successfully move through the legislature, through the public. He showed his leadership skills, which one thing Black men do, they do. They really do. Black men, corporate world, I'm telling you, Sheree, if they would just keep their hands to themselves, they are so wanted and promoted. I cannot tell you. There is such a want, a need. It is such a need for Black men to move into leadership positions. There really, really is. And I mean, that's a separate discussion I'd like to have with you. But I'm telling you, it's very, very obvious and clear what needs to be done. And now that we kind of the Black baby boomers are kind of, they really are retired. Many of them really need to just kind of sit down, retire. And some of Gen X are retiring. A lot of Gen X, they're in their 50s. The youngest of Gen X are really 49 years old. That's the youngest Gen X. And right now, millennials are middle-aged. At this point, there is no excuse, as Dana said, and there's a number of reasons why. But my focus is right now is that, yes, there was more income, and I've actually heard this from other Black Gen X. The level of income that Black people had really, really was there with George W. When you're looking at actual income received, the height really was with George W. Bush. And when we had the housing crisis, there really was a downturn. Black people negatively affected. Again, that's another conversation. A lot of it was, some people are mentioning in the chat, not fully knowing what was available to you, because there were programs available to you. NACA, making home affordable. They were doing fierce modifications. I mean, that's, again, I can speak at length regarding there. Heck, even bankruptcy could have saved you. Bankruptcy is within your right. It is within your right. And that would have kept you in your home. That would have kept you in your home. And again, a lot of Black people did not know, or just, I don't know, just there's so much available. There really is. And you kind of wonder why these are not being received. And I do believe one of the reasons, again, the nuclear family. It's very hard to do this by yourself. It's already hard enough as a Black woman, because as a single Black woman, once you enter that bracket, Sheree, when you enter just 100,000, when you enter six figures, you're a Black woman on W-2, you're six figures. It is a very, very, very different world. All this conversation about colorism, even with gender, it really goes out the window, because you are now professional. You are now solidly the minority. You really are 13%, if that. And the racism is real. Lord, the willingness to collude. Sheree, Lord, if I could tell you what happened to me this week, I'll hint to you. Of course, I'm in that particular bracket, but they really are lowballing me. They really, really, really are lowballing me.
Yeah, they do that no matter what, though. They would even do that if you're 60,000 or 50,000.
Tried to play with me this week. I don't know, maybe talk to you privately about it. This nonsense they tried to play with me. And here's the thing, Sheree. I am 100% unambiguous Black woman. I am Black woman, all 11:59 p.m. Black, stroke of midnight Black. And not only the racism, the willingness to collude. What's really funny, you remember your other show, we were talking about affirmative action? Mm-hmm. That nutcase having McDonald's. I know you had a number of lies about it, Sheree. And there's something I really want to tell you. At the end of the day, it's not merit. Because I'm telling you right now, Sheree, I'm the best. I'm not point blank, period. I'm not even exaggerating. Sheree, I really, really am that good. When I enter, you can outright fire 10 people. The level of value I bring, I know what needs to be done. I have been in this industry, and I've made it a point to study how to bring value. business value, delivery value. I've gone every treasury. I'm a technologist. I'm essentially a CIO. I work directly with the executives. The CEO knows me by name. I work for a company which is top 10. Top 10. They all know who I am.
And they're still trying to lowball you?
Nonsense HR play charade.
But then can you go to the CEO and say, hey,
Right. She said that she did. She said that we had to go because I got promoted again, of course. Sheree,
you're like the promotion queen. People need to
I'm
learn from you
joking.
with
Let me
that.
just tell real quickly. Within this 5 years, literally 5 times at home, and I cannot tell you the racism. The only reason why they haven't been able to successfully fire me is because remember, now we're all at home, right? Zoom, Teams, these conversations, these conference calls are recorded. So all these complaints, of course, got escalated. Who heard it? The executives. And what they told my boss, Sheree, they did the white dude hand 5. I didn't know you were running a team like that. They did the white dude hand 5 when they heard me, what I'm able to do. White dude. So it's interesting. They keep talking complaint. That's what they do. That they do everything to get you out when you are good. And this is how it's always been. I literally came in thinking, okay, I'm going to be the best. I'm number 1. I can't wait. I look so cute, so pretty. When I first started, I would call, miss this, I did everything right. Sheree, my background details that I know how to come in correctly. I come from a family who outright said the only way for a Black child to be successful is to be the minority.
You have to be 3 times as good.
No. I'm talking about in numbers, that you literally physically had to be the minority. You had to be like within, what are Black people, 13%, as you said?
You're saying you had to be the token?
No, almost basically either 1 or 2. Because remember, it's 13. So it's either 1 or 2 amongst. If we're going at 10, which will be 100% a whole, there has to be either 1 or 2. That's it. Maybe 3, which would be what, about 30%. But you don't even get that 100,000. You really are. And you need to know how to move, because they literally are outright targeting you. They target you in education. They target you in healthcare. They are targeting you in the workplace. You are directly being targeted. So what do? We literally have to pivot. You can't keep bringing up all this white people. Sheree, there isn't even colorism at this level. Sheree, there is no colorism at this level. It doesn't matter.
I would agree with that. So I'm going to say, bringing this back to Larry Elder, Larry Elder would tell you that you are imagining things because there's no systemic racism. And your job, your corporation is a system. So I'm just trying to bring it back to the Larry Elder discussion as well. Like,
racism, it's not. I'm talking about you can have 1,000 people. It's not systemic. You can have 1,000 people. There's always going to be 1, 2, 3 who will do everything. It doesn't. You can have. The fact of the matter is, you cannot change mind and heart. The United States has consistent, as much as U.S. code slavery against Black people. There is U.S. code against slavery. There is against discrimination. There really is. But what can you do when you have that one teacher who is constantly going after your student, your child? When you have a principal student, dean of student's life, you have middle management. Even though the executives love me. But what can I do when I have middle management who was consistently harassing me and then complaining to me to another executive? Like, you see what I'm saying?
Well, that is where
that's the reality. Because as much as you can say there's no systemic racism. Let's just accept that.
I didn't say that.
Can I ask you something?
I'm just saying for argument's sake. I'm not saying that you said. I'm just saying for argument. Okay. Like premise one. There's no systemic racism. Premise 1. That's one whole. As you said, the system is one whole collective. But remember, that argument is the part indicative of the whole? Yes or no? I will say that in some instances, you will have that part of the whole, that is what Black women are experiencing, is that racism. You will have one part of that one whole that will literally make another part's life a living, breathing hell.
I want to ask Upwardly Mobile, do you, because it sounds like you're experiencing a lot of microaggressions in the workforce.
I guess so. Here's the thing. I don't know and I don't care, because at the end of the day, my focus is really only one thing, which is delivering value.
But the point is, because you're saying that,
I'm just saying
it doesn't even matter how much value you deliver, especially in corporate America, because there is a lot of microaggressions, and that is against HR policy.
I'm sure
that is something that should be reported. That is an issue.
Report to who, Dana? Like, I'm not saying you're incorrect.
No. But I do understand that HR
racist. My point is pivot and build. And so what? Okay, so let's go to solution. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Dana. Like, my thing is, it's already here. I'm not going to go back and forth with it. That's just how it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to argue with these people. My issue is, how do I, living in a country that at the end of the day, and I kind of mentioned this to you in your chat, the United States, remember the United States, and I think Judge Joe Brown may agree with this, is these United States. You're the collective that comes, which is the United States. There's many to one. Okay, great. Many of the parts of these United States are racist. What can I do? At the end of the day, the money is not. That's really what I'm going to get at, Dana and Sheree. The money is not. And that's something really to discuss, because at the end of the day, there's something called private equity. At the end of the day, Das Kapital, they only see green and they want to see performance. And now we're moving towards real, true merit. And remember another thing, Dana, like you said, you're correct. There's all these microaggressions, but at the end but I'm still being measured. This is not like before, where you had to deal with these politics nonstop. At the end of the day, my work is measured. I'm working from home. I'm not there on site. So they're listening to these conversations. More people can see like what's going on. There's more.
I'm sorry, because people are saying now that we're starting to get off topic, and I agree with this.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
I want to ask you one question and leave you with a thought. I believe you said you've been at the same job for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You've been, okay. You don't have to be miserable at that job.
Who said I'm miserable?
Well, you said that there are people who are.
That's life. That's just Sheree. This is just a fact. I recognize this is a fact of being a professional Black woman who does make money in these United States.
But that doesn't have to be that way. I'm telling you, I work in a very great corporate environment. And what I'm saying to, hold on, please, hold on. And I'm saying not only for you, but for anyone else listening, that part of networking is if you are in a position where you are facing microaggressions, things aren't, getting better, etc. If you choose to stay, okay, but you also want to have the opportunity to be able to leave.
Right.
As well. You don't have to be in a position where you're being lowballed with regards to your job, financials, where you're dealing with people who are trying to, microaggression or sabotage or whatever it is. What I just really want to impart upon you is that's the reason why I never ever just say it's your technical skills and your soft skills. I always bring in your network as well when it comes to upward mobility. And there are a lot of companies that are out there where you would.
Sheree, you're not recognizing the fact just how few, really just how few. You're saying 130. How many Black women are making that income, Sheree?
But that doesn't mean that you are stuck at it. That doesn't mean that you or I or anybody else are stuck at one company. If we have skills that are 130 skills.
Sheree, I'm sorry. I think Sheree, this is a great channel. It really, really is. And you make some good points. But when you're discussing this type of bracket, when you're discussing this income, it is a very, 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 very different world. And everything you're saying is correct. Of course I can leave. I can leave and make even more money. I can, of course, there's every option you and Dana have mentioned is correct. Everything that you're saying is correct. Like, it's factual and true, but it doesn't really address the matter at hand as to, like, this is just like the reality. And yeah, and everything again, like you're saying, is true, but that's just like it's just not necessarily how it works. Like I like, again, like I'll of course I'll drop down, but when you're making, like, I really want to see a Black woman on W-2, like, tell me something differently. Like, a Black woman on W-2, like, when you're doing this type of salary, doing this type of work, it's just very, very different. And like, that's one thing I like, not even so much struggle. It's just like, I'm telling you things that are reality. There are no Black women. There are very, very, very few Black women here. In fact, speaking of microaggression, they actually hired another Black woman. She is an attorney. She's around my age. And I know why she hired her. Like, she's literally someone that I know I can work with. Like, there's another, like, they had a presentation. And they actually showcased 2 Black women. One who's more of a Southern girl. I loved her. She just became barred, an attorney. She's fantastic. She knows how to do this work. They really, really do like her. And it's very obvious that these Black women that have been hired, I can see why. Because at the end of the day, I perform. Like, they can give you all these microaggressions, but it's always there. Right now is performance. If you can perform, that's where it's at. Capital is really looking at not this race issue, it is the money. And that's, we're moving away from affirmative action, as they really are looking at merit. But the fact is, you're still going to deal with these, as you all said, microaggressions. That's just how it is. My thought is, it's just like, you have to learn to pivot. You have to recognize what it is. There's just a reality of how this environment is when you're making this type of money, when you're doing work where you're then getting a transaction of this type of money. And that's something, Larry Elder's not saying, he wants to talk about this. That's just not how it is. Like, if we're going to politics, Vivek Ramaswamy, he comes from the business world. He's not a politician. Trump comes from the business world. Bloomberg comes from the business world. Who do we have from business who's entering politics? So, kind of coming back to the subject of your live, where do we have that? I'll go ahead and drop, but I just wanted to wrap it all back again here, because you're making a lot of good points, you and Dana, but you kind of touched upon what I think it was you or Dana about the CBC. Who from the Congressional Black Caucus comes from the business world? I know Herman Cain did. He worked as an executive for Yum Brands, which owns Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. That's fantastic. I mean, that's cool. He wasn't an owner, but he was an executive. And I mean, what happened there? So I'm just thinking, we seem to have more advocates and, public, whatever that means, as opposed to people who really who understand capital, people who are coming from the world of capital, not coming from the world of advocacy or all this other stuff, but where you actually have to bring dollar value. You're being measured for ad value, like your value add. We don't have any politicians who do that. Charlemagne does not do that. That Kevin Samuels guy did not do that. Judge Will Brown is an attorney. He's a judge. That's complete. I mean, we don't have enough of that. We need more Black judges. We don't even have enough Black attorneys. The attorney population is supposed to actually commiserate with the proportionality of the population.
Why does it? What is? So you're saying why do we need more Black judges or attorneys?
We definitely need more attorneys, Dana. It's supposed to actually be proportionate. So if Black people are 13% of the population, you're really supposed to have 13% Black attorneys.
No. My question is is why do you want more Black professionals for economic purposes, or more Black professionals like lawyers for the purpose of helping Black people?
You can have all of the above and more. I just want to
Black judges and lawyers, that just because they're Black, they necessarily don't help Black people.
Okay, then don't.
No. But what I'm saying is, going back to the topic of systemic racism, there are a lot of Black judges, and I did do that Twitter space on Black women being a face of white supremacy. I did it on Twitter. I've seen Black women judges. They sentence Black men and boys harder than white counterparts. So just because somebody is Black doesn't mean they're for Black.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it needs to be had. I'm not, you can be for or against, I don't care. It physically needs to be had. You're not, this 7%, and I don't think it's that high, but you have a population of 13% Black people, and you have like what, 5% Black attorneys, while where everybody else is at proportion or more. That's a problem. That in and of itself is a problem.
I get that. Right. Even if so. When we're talking about industries,
physical number, raw.
Right. 1 second. When we're talking about industries, math, engineering, medicine, and law, you don't see enough. That number did drop when we're talking about Black Americans, as opposed to yesteryear. There were more Black professionals, and then that number is just on a decline since the 70s, going into the 80s.
Dana, respectfully, if you may repeat what you said, I'm sorry. I didn't quite hear you. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying we do need more Black people in spaces of technology, engineering, math, medicine, and even law. That at one point, let's say 60s and before, there was a lot of Black people who were doctors, who were lawyers, who were engineers. And then those numbers did decline. Let's just say starting from the late 70s into the 80s, that number is declined. So when you look around now, all the Black doctors that I was brought up with and seen is less and less and less. So those Black faces in professional spaces is on a decline, and we do need to increase those numbers. That I do agree.
Correct, Dana. And touching on what you just said right now, and this person, Samari Bliss, hello, young lady, Heather McDonald, Dana, Sheree had another live mentioning this nutcase Heather McDonald, and she made a comment, this Heather McDonald character, very disrespectful that Black people won't take their medication. Oh, that I guess they need a Black doctor. Like she just it really pissed me off because she was keeping it so surface as to the importance of a Black doctor. And this again goes to what you made, your comment, Sheree, regarding infant mortality. Mm-hmm. I've also mentioned Black women. Just right here, Dana, just to have someone platform how important it is to have more Black people in healthcare. Moreover, Dana, I'm sure you know, and Judge Joe Brown, the HBCUs produce about 80% of all Black doctors in the United States. Alone, these Black doctors. It's such a necessity. And even from a healthcare biological perspective, our Black melanin is more than just, of course, cosmetic. There is fundamental differences as to how we even synthesize protein. There are fundamental differences. There truly, truly is. If we were, you can actually study the bones of people. They know you're Black. It's just not race. This is biology. This is subspecies. And again, that's kind of going out of scope, but we are fundamentally different from a biological perspective, that we do need someone, because number one, the racism in this country, Lord, in healthcare, we cannot take this risk. On top of the fact, as I mentioned, the biological differences, just with our melanin alone, just with Black women in fibroids, Black women in fibroids, Black women in PCOS. There's still Black women postpartum, Black women just with our mammary glands, how we breastfeed. We can breastfeed. There's so many differences. We need, for example, Dana, let's say about more support towards a Black doula. So postpartum care, because we know that's where the big issue is right after we have our baby. That issue, when we're looking at, those first few months where it's so large, where either Black woman or her child dies. We could keep going, but when we're looking at direct policy, Sheree, you have mentioned this before, there are specific issues that we can focus on, and it's interesting the CBC doesn't do that. They don't. And again, like the both of you have said, Black people in technology, that is a whole other subject. And to be honest, Dana, I do believe this is one of the reasons why they've had this huge release of people 10%, 20%. Right now, the technical requirements to enter technology have been greatly reduced. You do not need to code. It's the last thing we even need to know to code. Right now, the focus really is leadership. If you think that getting into Harvard and getting a great grade on your SATs and doing all these tests and doing this is going to somehow ensure success in your life and in these tech companies, it's not. If you don't have the leadership and managerial skills, you will fail. They do not, and I'm not trying to, certain groups, but you just don't have it. You do not have the ability to know how to bring a group together and lead for a particular deliverable, for a particular goal or solution.
Okay, and with that,
Dana, and actually, Dana, you know who knows how to bring a team together. You know who know how to properly be a quarterback. They're looking for quarterbacks right now.
Okay, if we can, I want to, excuse me. Yes, I want to kind of bring it back to, and we're like getting to 2 hours now as well. So I want to bring it back to this Larry Elder discussion, and just the fact that we are in a position where, racism is $1 billion industry. And we have people on both sides playing us. It is going to be important for us in this election, not just president, but mayors, governors, state senators, etc. Those people actually have more. Your state senators oftentimes have more dominion over your day-to-day than the president of the United States. It's going to be important for us to really think about what policies we want to see enacted and who's going to be the people that actually creates those laws and enforces those laws to help us as upwardly mobile Black women and helps our families as well. So I just want to give both of you a chance, like really, really quickly, to kind of give your final comments. Upwardly Mobile, you want to give a final comment? Just make it super quick.
Oh, sure. I've said so much. Thank you so much for having me on your panel. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. The final comments, I just think that overall, our focus needs this is specifically for Black Americans. Our focus really need to be on, generating economic empowerment, political empowerment, and of course, reparations empowerment. And we're not working together as a collective. We think too much on the individual level. But when you have Larry Elders going on these urban spaces, right? And we're starting to see more people, politicians or, people running for office go to urban spaces. They didn't really do that before, right? They do want the Black vote, but when they are going to these spaces, we need to tell people like a Charlamagne or the Breakfast Club, listen, why don't you have some informative questions to ask? Don't ask these elementary questions. That is a reflection on Black America. Even though I don't listen to Breakfast Club, I think they're boring and they're corny, but that is a reflection of Black America. That is a reflection of Black news, Black media, as opposed to yesteryear when you talk about the Tony Browns, the Gil Nobles. Come on. Can you imagine if Larry Elder was sitting there having a conversation with Tony Brown or Gil Noble?
I don't even know who that is. I'm sorry.
You don't remember Like It Is on Sundays at 12 noon?
Was that a local
journalist? Oh my God, I love. So just Google Gil Noble. He passed away some years ago, but he interviewed everybody under the sun, Black politicians, activists.
Is that like a Rock Newman?
Yeah, but better.
Okay.
But still, even a Rock Newman. So we have a Rock Newman, or we have Roland Martin. I get it, but that's all Democrat. You talking about Gil Noble, who was objective. He wasn't a Republican, a Democrat. And Tony Brown, Tony Brown Journal, those days are long gone. And of course you have to evolve. But the point that I'm trying to make here, and even someone like a Tavis Smiley, the point I'm trying to make here, when you have these highly successful people coming on your platform, and whether they're running for office or whatever the case may be, why don't you have some competent intellectual questions and talking points? Because if you just have these elementary school conversations or questions to ask them, you are going to look like a fool when a Joe Biden say you're not black enough. You are going to look like a fool when you don't have a proper rebuttal for a Larry Elder, and that is a reflection of Black America. I'm sorry. So if we want to be in these spaces, then we need to come prepared, and we need to be informative when we're in these spaces, and that's just not happening.
Selfish Love brought up a good point as well. Dana, he purposely went on the Lowbrow Breakfast Club. So I was saying, Dana, that I was watching Jason Whitlock. He was interviewing Larry Elder, and Larry Elder said, I've been trying to get on the Breakfast Club for years, right? There are politicians out there, there are people out there who want to get on the Breakfast Club. They want to get on these big shows. Yet, I've seen Larry Elder on your channel, so I know that he does interview with upper level Black media, but I do also think that there is something to these politicians wanting to go to certain radio stations that are where the constituency and the hosts are not as well read. Like, I'll be honest with you, if he went to a Yvette Carnell or Tone Talks, I would actually have more respect for him, because those are people who honestly could push back on his narrative, and they have the ear of the people.
The Breakfast Club is where iHeart, they do have a larger reach, because yes, they're on YouTube, they're on radio in the #1 market, they're on Apple, they're on every stream. So I get it. But you're right. It is politics, even with them coming on and or wanting certain people up there, because Judge Joe Brown was supposed to come up there years ago, but they didn't want to pay for his airfare and hotel. And that's what he requires. So he's like, no, I'm not going up there. And plus, y'all idiots anyway, So yeah, it is something to it. But all I'm saying is, you're starting to see these politicians go up there. Yeah, are you going up there because it's an easy target? But if you're going to start having that implemented in your hip hop program, at least have some intellectual questions and talking point. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and have a person who is able to do the interview. I don't like Teslin's delivery. I thought that her points with both Vivek and with Larry Elder were great points, but her delivery was so off-putting that
a little bit of arrogance.
It was arrogant. It was too forceful, and it wasn't something where people were too contentious. It wasn't something where people could say, oh, I see her side of it, and I see the breakdown of what she's asking and what he is responding. For example, the breakdown that Diamond Dave did of Vivek Ramaswamy, if Vivek had gone up against Diamond Dave, it would have been a different story. It would have been a different story, where we're able to say, hold on a second, you're telling me you got up the ladder because of your race and other things that favored you, and now you want to kick the ladder from underneath you? That is a totally different conversation, and the way that a Diamond Dave would have conversed with a Vivek Ramaswamy, it would have been a totally different discussion.
Right. And that could be it too. That could be like, maybe these people are selecting low-level platforms, even though they have a larger reach, but that's why they have a larger reach. That's why they're popular, because they talk about nonsense, but it is low level intellectually. So they pick low level intellectual platforms to try to reach out to Black people. That should be an insult to us as well, because the Breakfast Club is playing into that. So yeah, they go on these low intellectual level platforms such as the Breakfast Club, because that's how they look at us.
Yeah, I
Not
agree with that.
intellectually informed.
I agree with that. So then the question is, why should Black people, even upwardly mobile Black people, why should we vote Republican? Now I know why I, in certain circumstances, vote Republican, because especially on a local level, I see where the laws that they have and that they are putting in place and keeping in place is more beneficial to me on a local level. But
Well, why are you voting Democrat? It's not even about. It's not so much about
it's about
Democrat.
policy. For me, it's
Is.
about policy.
It's about policy. So whether that, because a lot of times you have no choice but to vote Democrat, because if you're in a heavy Democratic
city
area,
or
city.
area.
So, or voting Black area, but who are these people that you're voting for? I intentionally changed from Democrat to Republican in New Jersey because of local politics. Because I knew who were running on a Democrat and I knew who were running on a Republican. It's like, you know what? A lot of times when they see a 2% or a 5% uptick on Black people switching to the other party, even though let's say 90% of the population, vote blue, but if they see a 10% is voting red and it used to be 2%, they get concerned. Yeah. And so I did it for that. And then two, it was more so for the county clerks. They give out yays and nays for like if you want a contracts for the city or whatever, and so I didn't want, and then the people who were running on a Republican, they were all women, and they were all women of color, Black, Hispanic, and I was like, oh, so I did it for local politics, because the Democrats where I'm from, they're all corrupt. They really don't do anything for Black people, but Black people keep voting for them because they're a Black face. But it's the white people that's benefiting. So again, you have to understand what are the policies putting forth. It takes money. A lot of Black people don't, especially in urban areas, don't have money.
Or they don't invest in the politicians. So yeah.
Exactly.
So, and I have to admit, so this is where I meet people where they are. In my 20s and early 30s, I voted Democrat. The reason for that, I have to be real, is I had a real fear of the Republicans taking away voting rights and voting access. You may say it's dumb, et cetera, but I had a real concern about that. Even though I like the policies of the Republicans more, I'm like, but I don't know if they would actually defend the rights that, I'll be honest with you, I was like, that my grandmother fought for.
But
I don't trust them. Well, let me finish it. Let me finish this and then I'll let you go. I don't trust them. I didn't trust them. And I think that if the Republicans are going to be honest about, talking to Black America, they have to start off with the fact that we don't vote for them is not because we disagree with their policies, because a lot of Black people, I think more Black people than we realize, believe in the Republican policies, but we don't trust them. And that has to be dealt with. Otherwise, you having a Larry Elder or a Candace Owens or anybody saying, well, I don't know why you stupid people aren't voting when, these policies of the Democrats are hurting you. If you don't deal with that lack of distrust, you'll never get people to your other side. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's true. But your distrust, that's from generations passed down, because people typically, when you turn 18, people typically register what they family have registered. People may say, I'm a Republican. Well, everyone's in my family been a Republican. So it's like a family tradition. Parents tell their kids, you're going to be a Republican or whatever. it's like table talk, family table talk, table economics, table politics. That's why we are always constantly voting Democrat, because our parents and their parents, they ushered in the civil rights movement, and that's when the rest of Black America just went on that Democratic plantation. However, and then it comes with the talking points: are they going to take my voting rights away? Knowing that they can't, it can't happen. And I think that's because our parents and grandparents have put that fear, because to a certain degree they were kind of misled. So I think that's passed down from generations of how we vote, and who we vote for. And I'm sorry, those days are long gone, because the Democrats are now, before this illegal immigrant crisis, they were put in fear. Oh, Trump is racist, right? Okay, so now Trump is president. Oh, now the Republicans want to take away your voting rights. They could never take away your voting rights. What are you talking about? Oh, because they want you to show an ID. Really? Okay, stupid. You should be able to show your ID. Oh, well, Black people, especially senior citizens, they don't have IDs. Yes, they do. They have state IDs because they need to cash their check. So, or they could just go get an ID. However, that's all a lie with the voting ID, because again, coming from New Jersey, East Orange, New Jersey, always been Democrat. When Black people started moving in there, you wouldn't, it's really no Republican candidates, right? When I went and voted for the last election, was it the presidency? It was something, or after that, no, midterms. First thing they said was, and these are all Black people, we need to see your ID. They was not going to let me fill out nothing, go inside to press the button, and I had to show them ID, and it had to match the address that they have in the book.
Right. And I think that that's fair. I honestly do. I agree with you that Black people, if if we need an ID to get on a plane to go, across the country or to the Dominican Republic or whatever, then we can get an ID to vote. Everything is, and as far as our senior citizens, I did hear Roland Martin, so I'm like, you take that with a grain of salt. He was talking about the fact that some elderly would go down to get their ID, but then they would need to like come back to fill in some paperwork before they could get it, and they didn't have transportation in order to do that. If that's a problem, if that's a real problem, it's probably a problem for 0.05% of people. I'd rather like have a tax that pays for some shuttles for,
Right.
Sister Jenkins and Brother Thomas to be picked up at their house and brought back to get their voter ID.
Right.
We don't need to have a total system, switch up and change for 0.5% of the population. I want our elderly to vote. I think they can, though. I think they can. And if they can't, then even if it's incumbent on us, you, me, the judge, et cetera, to say, we're going to put our coins together and we're going to make sure that they can get an Uber to go and get their ID or what, I would be willing to fund something like that so that she can vote. That elderly woman can vote.
But I don't think
elderly
that was,
man.
I think that was just a lie that they just
Yeah,
created that storyline. That wasn't even true. And there was another thing, gerrymandering, right? Again, but that takes the people, because you look at Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee is 75% Black. And the judge told me this: the mayors, city council, chief of police, everybody in city official positions, they're all Black. So that's a Black city, Black ran city, but only 20% of the Black people out of the 75% of the Black population actually vote.
I would believe that.
And what is the percentage of the 20-30% of white people that are there?
Probably close
like
to 100%.
Yeah, 100% or 90% of them. So again, but excuse me, it's a Black run city. So if you're complaining about your city, well, you need to go to your officials. They look just like you. There's no white men there. But why only 20% out of 75% of the population of Black people are voting? That is a problem.
I think that, and we can definitely go through this rabbit hole at some point in the future, because I've always found this fascinating. It's the same reason why a lot of lower income white people weren't voting until Trump showed up. It's because why? What am I voting for? Why am I voting? You know, nobody is here to energize me. And the truth is, there's a large demographic of lower income people, let's be real, who feel like if there's not a person there who is specifically speaking to them and specifically is energizing them, then they're like, why am I voting? Um, so I don't think it's just Black people. I think it was the lower income white people as well, and so many counties that went for Trump.
Yeah, well, no, well, the basically what the judge was telling me, the history of Memphis voting has always been 20% for a very long time. So it's not a Trump thing, and that's again, and this is why Roland Martins and our mainstream media do a disservice to the American people, because they're trying to make Trump, he's the boogeyman. No, he's not. It's a whole bunch of other boogeymans that's right up the street from you in your city hall. Memphis it's always been a low voting turnout for Black people.
So when Obama, especially when he first ran in 2008, I know a lot of people who went out to vote for him because, they were energized. So what I was trying to say is not necessarily the archetype of person, right? Who doesn't come out to vote unless they're really, really behind a candidate. And we saw that biggest swing with Obama in 08 and Trump in 2016, where people who normally don't vote, they came out in droves to vote because there was a politician or somebody on the ballot that was really speaking to them. Just like in Ohio with the abortion thing, you had record turnout in August because people were really energized about this one referendum. So I think there are some people, this is what I'm trying to
But
say,
there
because
was
I was
majority
always
Black people. There weren't majority Black people that were pushing against it or even for it. But again, if Black people coming out to vote for Obama, that's because he was Black. And coming out and going out to vote against Donald Trump, that's because you let the media and everybody make you believe that he was a racist. But either way, it doesn't matter whether somebody a racist. They weren't voting for policies. And Obama, your president has nothing to do with your day-to-day life. Who are you voting for your mayor in New Jersey? Well, we do vote for our sheriffs, but it's certain things that in New Jersey we can't vote for, like our judges, where other states do. Or are you voting for your judges? No, Black people are not.
And then, don't kill me, Dana, but when we came out with "Take Your Booty to the Polls," and the strippers were
and
talking
collard
about
greens, when they give away free collard greens and cornbread, they lined up and that was just to register to vote.
Yes. Well, look, they know how to get us when when needed. But the whole "take your booty to the poll" thing, the reason why I mention it and I think about it is, yeah, a lot of people, thought it was distasteful and they laughed. But how many young men learned a civics lesson because of that commercial as well?
They didn't learn nothing. You saw it.
No, they did talk about the fact that you can go and you can elect your DA. At least I guess in Atlanta you can, where the young ladies were.
But if you never knew that, that means you never paid attention. But the fact is that did you go look up what DA district attorney was running? Did you go to their website to see what policies they were running on? No. Or when you went to vote, right? Because I think that booty to the poll, that was the presidential election.
That was 2016 presidential election.
Right.
I'll never
did
forget.
you skip the DA box and just voted everything else that you were more familiar with, like presidents and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, look, it's going to be interesting times with regards to this election, everything that's happening. I give it 50-50 right now, with regards to whether Trump will get back in, whether Biden is going to stay, etc. I do believe that the establishment on both sides, Republican and Democrat, neither side wants Trump. However, it would not surprise me if he still pulls out a win. I
He
don't
is
think
going
Biden has it. I heard him speak. I was listening to him. He wasn't giving a press conference, but I think he was answering questions. And the man could barely talk. And I just,
he's sick.
yeah.
But the recent GOP debate, they were all auditioning to be vice presidents or get a cabinet position because they know Donald Trump is going to be elected by the people. Now,
Yep.
that's the popular vote. What is the electoral college going to say? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But because that happened to Hillary Clinton, but because she did get the quote unquote popular vote. But if you mean to tell me, the thing is, are you going to? This is the thing that people are watching. Are the Democrats going to interfere again? And I'm not going to say the words because we're on YouTube. Or are you going to just let us vote like we always been doing because we're not on lockdown, right? And just see where the chips fall. Because if you don't do that, I do believe we are going to see a real brand 2023 American style French Revolution.
I hope not, but I'm
I
prepared
hope
for
not either because
anything,
I'm not.
Dana.
I don't have that courage.
Yeah, I'm prepared for anything, but look, we'll see what happens. I think at the end of the day, 2020 was decided by apparently 44,000 people in 3 states. So it was close, right? I mean, like that was like razor thin close.
Which
People are
to me,
also
those numbers
dissatisfied. Well,
for
let me
me,
just
those
say,
numbers are skewed. I'll say that.
okay. I don't know. I honestly am not on either side of that. I get both sides, but hey. But one thing that Biden is doing that I think is a mistake, and this is why I would not be surprised if Trump gets back in, is he is trying to tell people that the economy is doing well. And even though you have economic numbers showing, and I put that in quotes, that the economy is doing well. Even though you have inflation going down, even though you have the lowest unemployment rate in history, if you line up 10 people, black, white, Asian, etc., regular people, and ask them, do you think the economy is in a good place? The majority of those people are going to say no, in my opinion. And that's the reason why, and Trump would lean into that. Trump would lean into that and say, I know the economy isn't doing well. Let me back in because when I was in, you had a better quality of life economically. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back in.
Right. No, I agree with that. I mean, I plan on voting for him. It has to do economics. It has to do with not looking like a wimp to foreign countries. He is the deal maker. Let's make, and that's honestly that's what it's about. Let's make a deal. And that's how I look at it. I look at it, we the people, you have numbers, whether it's your local politician or someone on the federal level. I look at it, okay, we won't have to make a deal, even with this reparations, because it is due, but it is about the deal. That's all it is.
Well, I always said that if Black people really want reparations, the probably only president that could get it for us is Trump, because he is the only president that could give us reparations, and the people that follow him would not turn on him. In my opinion, this is Cherie's opinion. I also think we made a mistake. I don't know who was going against Ice Cube, but he was saying that people were going against him when he met with Trump. I think that was the dumbest thing. Why would you not want, and I understand celebrities not, celebrities in the past going and speaking politically. But my understanding is that Ice Cube was not there by himself. He brought Dr. Sandy Darity and other scholars with him to these meetings, and he had them formulate the platinum plan, I think it was, or whatever it was. I honestly think that if we went to Trump as a bloc and said, look, really, this is Cherie's opinion. I think Trump wants to brag that he swung the Black vote. This is Cherie's opinion. And if we go to him in a block and say, hey, you know what? We'll give you our vote. We want either reparations, or we want this platinum plan, or we want something, we would get it.
Yeah.
I
So
honestly believe that.
Ice Cube presented his plan in the 2020 election, not when he first got elected. And the problem was when Trump was running the first time, and he was made the nominee. And I know Steve Harvey was going to be with him. Any Black person, with common sense that will going to meet with Trump about Black Americans, because that's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. They were dragged by Black Americans and public figures. And that was our downfall, because if Ice Cube, I don't know what he was doing back then. Maybe he didn't think of it then. But if we would have, Black Americans such as Ice Cube or someone like Ice Cube would have presented him with Contract for Black America in 2016, we would have been on the road to reparations, because reparations has to be an act by Congress, not the president. But we would have been on that road, and we would have got more money in that platinum plan that he suggested. And I think that came about in Trump campaign for 2020. Not
the platinum plan. I think it was like Angela Satin King said, it was like $500 billion or something. Whatever amount of money it was substantial that he was going to offer.
On that. You take those, you take that, but you have you have to build. See, people think, they just supposed to write a $1 trillion check. It does not.
That's not going to do it like that. No.
You take
paid to the order of Dana and Cherie. No, that's not how it's going to work.
Right. And they're not going to give you a lump sum. You have, and just Jewish people, you have to take pieces and you build up on that. You invest it, you accumulate more power, and then you start, okay, let's go to the private sector here. Let's go start digging up in Wall Street as far as operations. But you have to take the small wins and build up on it. And that's why at the end of the day, for me, and with this whole, your whole discussion with Larry Elder and systemic racism and stuff and a Breakfast Club, at the end of the day, the fault in 2023 falls on Black Americans. We are not taking accountability for our lack of. It's really our fault. You could no longer blame white people. I'm sorry.
I agree. You can't blame white people. We have issues that some people will say, well, it's because of what they did in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And it's like, okay, but at some point, Dana's right. We have to take accountability for where we are today. And I've also said this on this channel, that of all the countries that are out there that we could have been either blessed to have been born in or to migrate to, America is still the best place and the easiest place to level up financially. It is. So, in spite of whatever you think of racism and corporate America and things like that, this is the place to be. So we don't take advantage of, and I'm not saying we within this channel, I'm talking about Black America as whole. We don't take advantage of our opportunities enough. We could be an economic powerhouse. We could be as much of an economic powerhouse as the Chinese Americans and the Jewish Americans if we really played chestnut checkers. And we haven't done that.
Right. We're not even playing Monopoly. We're not even playing.
Samry has a question. This is just so Dana is our political expert here. My question about reparation is, who gets it? Who counts as FBA? I know I'm not getting it since my heritage is not FBA. Plus, what about mixed FBA individuals? Girl, you trying to get us in trouble over here. Dana, what's your response to that?
Well, it's not. It's FBA is not an organization. That's something that Tariq Nasheed coined. But we talk about American descendants of slavery lineage, and it's not a race. Reparations is a lineage base. So people of the Caribbean, they have CARICOM, which is led by Sir Hilary Beckles. And that is for the enslaved the Africans that were enslaved. That so anyone like Jamaica, Haiti, or any of the Caribbean islands who have a lineage that could trace their lineage back to people who were enslaved in the Caribbean, then CARICOM is your organization for you to receive reparations. In America, American Descendants of Slavery, aka ADOS, that is the enslaved Africans that were brought here. But you have to be able to trace back your lineage to slavery. So if you are mixed, like my son, his father is Jamaican. I always say he getting two checks. He getting it from CARICOM and he gonna get it from America. But if you have a parent that's white and one that's black, if the black side could trace their lineage back to slavery, you will qualify. There are even some white people, honey, that and Dick Gregory said this. He was like, "Don't you?" And this was years ago. He said, "Don't you know if we ever get reparations, how many white people gonna be in that line?" It's so many white people that pass or deny their blackness going down in their lineage, but they're going to be some white people. So it's all about it's lineage based, tracing your lineage back to Jim Crow, Reconstruction, and slavery. That's it.
So FBA is Foundational Black Americans, Essence is cool. And that is a term that Tariq Nasheed coined. At first, we were all using ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. And then I don't know what happens and fallout happened. And Tariq coined FBA.
Right.
But it's supposed to mean the same thing.
ADOS is actually copyright. It's a real organization to where it's a national organization and it's different chapters throughout the states in America where locally people are addressing reparations in their state. So that is a real organization. And Foundational Black Americans, FBA, and Tariq Nasheed said itself, it's not an organization. It's just a name that he coined for cultural purposes, specifically that's Black American culture, specifically Foundational Black Americans, but it's not an organization. ADOS is an organization. ADOS is a national organization with local chapters in it.
Right. So, we'll come back at some point. We had a discussion about reparations. I interviewed you about reparations. I think that so first of all, I'm pro reparations, definitely. Both sides of my family is ADOS. So I think that there's some issues with reparations, and we had this discussion as well, where there are a lot of saboteurs on the inside of, the halls of government and things like that. And you and I have had disagreements as well about some of the other issues around reparations, but I do believe that, and somebody else had agreed with me as well, that Trump would have been able to at least start laying the real foundation. It's like, and like you're saying, Dana, that ultimately the Senate and the and Congress would need to, to work on a bill. But
the question I have for that, when Trump was president, wasn't Congress Democrat control?
Not at the midterms, it became Republican controlled. Because at one point it was Republican controlled because that's how he was able
No,
to.
did it? No, was it because remember this last midterm now is back in the control of the Republicans in the House.
I feel like it was Republican when he first got in because he was able to get his tax cuts done and something else, and then it switched in the midterms.
Right. So
yeah.
So when it switched to it eventually switched to Democrat while he was still president.
Yeah, I think it switched to Democrat. You know what? We got Google here.
Because my point is with all that is if that's the case, right? We should have been, and because I do believe too, Trump would have been the one, not just entertaining, but having Black people come to the table to discuss reparations. And with a Democratic Congress, that would have put them to the test. They had to sign off on it because if they did not, if we would have brought up reparations to Donald Trump, and then he would have said, hey, let's present this to Congress, and you have the Congressional Black Caucus, you have, let's just say it was the House that was Democrat controlled, if they would have not addressed it or passed it, then they knew that Black people would have like, oh no, we're not voting for you no more. It will look bad
if
for
they'd
them.
gone against it. Yeah.
Right.
And I also think that Trump is a unique person where if he said, I really want reparations, you Republican senators are going to, like push it through the chamber as well. Otherwise, I'm not going to endorse you, because Trump really does have the MAGA base. And these senators and legislators, they are scared to death that Trump is not going to endorse them, or especially at the time, 2016 to 2018. I think it was a big fail. I think it was a big miss for Black people. So
again, that Black people dropped the ball.
Yeah. And Donna's saying in 2018 the midterms had changed. So Selfish Love is saying Trump had the Senate and House for the first 2 years. I thought that was the case, because I remembered with the tax cuts he would not have been able to do them except for the majority, because there was something in the law that had to change, and he needed both
So
the House and the
so
Senate.
the reparations talk would have been the first 2 years, it would have been a no. But again, he is the deal maker. So he would have been like, listen, let's see what happens after the midterms, because they're not going to pass this in Congress. Now, if the Democrats end up winning the Congress, then let's present it to them. Because if we had smart people talking to him, it could have been like, all right, if the Democrats control Congress after the midterms, right, and you're still president, we're presented reparations with your support to Congress, and the Democrats don't have a choice but to agree to pass it through, whether it's subcommittee or whether it's HR 40. But that didn't happen. All I'm saying is we would have had his support to present it to Congress.
I think so. But we will see what happens with regards to that. Donna saying, didn't Trump honor the 400 years after the end of slavery at the White House? It was televised. Probably. I don't think Trump, it was like the boogeyman. I didn't like January 6th. I'll be honest with you. But overall, his presidency, I remember, I think I said this story once on this channel, but I remembered being terrified when Trump was inaugurated. And for the first year of his presidency, every day without fail, I would get up and I would watch MSNBC. I would watch Joe and Mika on MSNBC morning show. And I'll never, ever forget it. It was a year after he was inaugurated, and Mika comes out and she said, Donald Trump has been in office for a year, and today we're going to review all the things that happened during this first year of his presidency. And Dana, I will never forget, I didn't even let her get past that sentence. I turned the TV off and I sat in bed and I said, well, Cherie, how has your life changed over the past year since Donald Trump has been president? You know what, Dana? Life didn't change at all. My revenues were up in my business. Everything was okay. The world didn't come to an end. Girl, I have not turned on MSNBC since then.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm like, wait a second.
And then in year two, when you saw, oh, my 401k is growing, or my investments are growing, you know what I'm saying?
He wasn't the boogeyman. He was not the boogeyman. I'm like, okay, Cherie, you're being ridiculous now. And that really was when I got a lot more vocal about, let's not let these people try to con us either way,
Right.
So, well, let's wrap it up. I'm going to go and
thanks for having me, Cherie.
Enjoy my Friday. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all, this is a long show tonight, but we didn't even get through half of Larry Elder. But I want to thank everybody for being here. Yeah, it's been real. Hit the thumbs up. We'll be back on Sunday to talk about your networking plans, your personalized networking plans, you are able to join us on Zoom. For that, you need to be on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com, in order to participate in that. Other than that, I want to thank Real Dana. I want to thank AE for coming up. And yeah, I will work on us not derailing the conversation either. So, but I apologize for that. But hope you all enjoyed the discussion this evening. And we will definitely also be coming back with some economic news and money news as well, and some messy money topics that I have for all of you. So, bye, ladies. Talk to you soon.